So the other day I was scrolling through YouTube and I stumbled across this John Stossel video called "The FBI and Media Don't Tell You How Many Lives Guns Saved." Now, you know me. I've been screaming this for years. The media will marinate in a tragedy for a week, but the second a regular person with a gun prevents one, suddenly the assignment desk has amnesia. This video actually stitches that bias together. Hollywood, advocacy groups, and FBI data that's engineered to make good guys with guns look rare and non-existent. So I want to show you some of the key moments from this Stossel video and then unpack them because they nailed a lot of what I've been saying and it is done pretty well.
Do you carry a gun? Bad idea, says Hollywood. Countless TV shows portray good guys who try to stop crimes with their own guns as fools.
Citizen's arrest, drop your gun!
The wise police officer sums it up.
Leave it to a good guy with a gun to really screw things up.
Liberal politicians agree.
A good guy with a gun will stop the bad guys with a gun. It doesn't hold up.
This isn't just lazy TV writing, it's programming. Literally, every time Hollywood shows you an armed civilian, it's the same clown shit. Fumbling, reckless, out of his depth, he charges in, makes things worse, then the real hero, the cop or detective, swoops in and delivers the smug lecture. And this isn't random. You see, anti-gun groups literally brag about consulting on scripts. They write press releases about it. They want you to laugh at the gun owner because laughter is more powerful than statistics. People don't remember FBI tables, but they do remember the sitcom dad who shoots himself in the foot. It is conditioning. You see it enough and then you start believing it. And here's the thing, that exact scene that Stossel used, you see, it's straight out of the show Rookie. And I'm actually gonna do a whole separate video breaking down the scene in detail. So if you wanna catch that when it drops, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it and you get the little ding ding notification, even though sometimes YouTube acts weird and don't be ding ding and notifying people when my videos drop. But that's neither here nor there. Actually, that's here and everywhere. Stop doing that, YouTube. Notify these people.
Good guy with a gun statistically isn't realistic. It's an adolescent rescue fantasy.
An adolescent rescue fantasy? Now, I'm no gun person. I was raised among lefty gun haters. I assumed Hollywood and the media told the truth. But then, 17 years ago, I hired the best data analyzer I know.
So this is actually really smart framing here. You see, he's saying, look, I didn't come in as a gun guy. I came in as a skeptic. And that matters because it shuts down the knee-jerk dismissal. Oh, you're just biased. No, he's someone who doubted, looked at the numbers, and then changed his mind. That, my friends, is called thinking. And the more people start to do it, the less we have to talk about these gun control laws and stupidity evolving around the Second Amendment that people just seemingly don't understand.
That very tall guy on the left, Maxim Lott, here talking to the nearly as tall John Lott, his father, a criminal justice researcher who wrote this book. More guns, less crime? I was skeptical, and some researchers questioned Lott's data, but I've come to believe Lott is making a good point. In places where bad guys fear a good guy might be armed, crime tends to fall.
I've had John Lott on my podcast more than once. We've hammered this exact point, deterrence. You see, criminals don't want fights, they want victims. The chance that someone might shoot back changes everything.
We just did an article that came out of Real Clear Investigations that looked at the question that you're raising there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's not surprising that people have the perception that you do. If you look at the top 5 largest newspapers in the United States, the New York Times, USA Today, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, Wall Street Journal, between those 5 papers, so far this year, they've had a total of 10 successful defensive gun use stories that have occurred. At the same time, they had over 2,700 gun crime stories where people were either killed or wounded as a result of a gun crime. So, you know, well-informed people who, you know, read those types of newspapers, or, you know, if you look at MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, you find 0 defensive gun use stories that have occurred there. Yeah. So, you know, people may think that they're well-informed individuals, but it's not surprising that they have the type of perception that you were just describing.
You see, if you live on a steady diet of CNN, MSNBC, and the Times, you'd think defensive gun use was almost non-existent. But that's not reality. That is selective storytelling.
Academics who have looked at this type of issue find that about 95% of defensive gun uses merely involve brandishing of a gun. Well, it's kind of the opposite percent of what they're getting there. And it's understandable. I'm not blaming the news media per se. I mean, if you have two stories, in one case there's a dead body on the ground and a sympathetic person like a victim. In another case, let's say a woman's brandished a gun, the would-be criminals run away, no shots fired, nobody's shot, no crime actually committed, you're not even completely sure what crime would have been committed. I think anybody would pick the first story of a dead body as being more newsworthy than the second one. You don't need to have any type of bias on the part of media editors or outlets in order to try to explain that.
Yeah.
But if you care about policy, you care about both types of cases, even though you may only care about one of those cases when you're talking about what's newsworthy. And so I think that explains part of it. And of course, that means you miss the massive number of defensive gun uses that don't involve guns being fired, don't involve people being killed or wounded. I mean, the rate that people are killed or wounded from defensive gun uses is well less than 1%. So you're missing almost all the cases that are out there. And so that explains part of it. I don't think it explains everything in terms of media coverage.
That's the kicker. 95% of defensive gun uses don't even involve pulling the trigger. Just showing the gun ends it. But because there's no body bag, no blood on the sidewalk, the media just doesn't cover it. If it bleeds, it leads. If it doesn't, it disappears.
For example, the FBI includes the famous Pulse nightclub shooting.
At least 50 people are dead.
1 week afterwards, there was a similar attack at a nightclub in South Carolina.
There, a concealed carrier took down the shooter.
The thing is, it got virtually no news coverage.
49 people being killed is going to be a bigger story than 3 people being killed.
I understand, but the guy still had like 125 rounds of ammunition on him when he was stopped. You would think at least some of the news coverage would at least mention, here's another case that almost turned out to be the same, but it was stopped.
Also, remember the Parkland shooting?
At least 17 people are dead in Parkland, Florida.
Just a few months later, in Titusville, Florida, there was an elementary school that was having a big event at a park right next to the school. It had hundreds of students there, and a man came up, started firing his gun.
Police say the gunman was then shot by someone else who had a legally concealed weapon.
And was able to seriously wound the attacker and stop him before he was able to go and kill anybody.
The bystanders saved a lot of people's lives, says the police.
This is the formula. Told you. The bloodbath gets wall-to-wall coverage. The prevention gets a footnote, if that. Pulse nightclub, nonstop coverage. But the nightclub in South Carolina, a week later, where civilians stopped a copycat shooter, barely a mention. Same thing with Parkland versus Titusville. Hundreds of kids at a back-to-school event. Guy shows up shooting. Armed bystanders end it. Police literally said the bystanders saved a lot of people's lives. And the story still vanishes into the ether. Because prevention doesn't sell. And worse, if people saw too many of those stories, the good guy with the gun is a myth narrative dies immediately.
3 people are dead, several others injured.
Raul Mendez was at a party taking selfies with his pregnant wife. But then a guest at the party began firing at people.
Catches me in the right side of the head. Bullet entered right here, right by my ear, goes straight through my face and out my left eye.
Somehow, Mendez recovered.
I gained consciousness, and I unloaded 4 rounds and finished them off.
He probably saved the lives of a dozen people, including his wife and daughter.
Now, this one is personal because I actually interviewed this guy. This man was shot in the face, lost an eye. Most people would have been done, but he got back up and ended the threat, saving his wife, his daughters, and everyone else at that family gathering. Not a superhero, not a SWAT officer, just a dad who carried every day because he refused to gamble his family's life to luck.
I know it's kind of all over the place. Everywhere I go.
Yeah.
I mean, my daughters were young. I was that one father with a I mean, taking my girls to Chuck E. Cheese with the firearm, sealed. I didn't care.
Yeah.
There's one thing that, matters the most to me. That's family, my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to take a chance if anybody, tries to do any harm or anything.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I just made it like I carry religiously. So
yeah. What do you have a particular go-to carry? Do you have a rotation system?
At the time, I always upgrade to change it up a bit, but I always do have my daily carry. At that time, I was carrying a Glock 36, the subcompact Glock.
The 45? Yeah.
45, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that was my go-to gun at the time. I had it concealed in my hip, and I just carried that thing everywhere I go. Yeah. I got up from that headshot, I was conscious again, and I had a choice to make. Either make my way out that house or, go towards those screams and, So I did what any father, any friend, would do, and I decided to go towards those screams. I pulled out my Glock, just held it and just walked towards that. And honestly, at that point, I was on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I do believe that when you go into autopilot, that's pretty much all your knowledge, all your training, all your beliefs, all the scenarios you've ever ran in your head just kind of come into one. And that's what you do in autopilot, without even thinking, so I just went. Don't know if they told me, hey, that's the shooter or anything like that. I don't know if I recognize them because, I mean, I'm missing one eye.
Yeah.
I'm sure my right eye was just like a blur, with blood, gushing down, the impact hitting near my, only good eye.
Yeah.
I'm sure I had some, vision issues, possibly. But again, like I said, I was on autopilot. And from what the detectives, told me, I shot 4 shots into his chest. From what I hear, 2 of those shots actually hit his heart.
Really?
So he died instantly right there in front of the master bedroom.
Jesus. Whew. That's intense, brother.
Right?
That is crazy. Especially considering there's no warning, there was nothing. Like you said, there were no early indications to say that he would do something like this. That's not a comic book story. That's not Hollywood. That's America.
I think the people at the top, are more politically motivated than maybe your rank and file FBI agent. If they think that it would go against the narrative that they want to go and push, then they'll fight you.
We asked the FBI about those cases they missed. They responded, their data is not intended to explore all active shooter incidents, but rather to provide a baseline understanding. Seems like they admit their data's incomplete.
Baseline understanding. That's bureaucrat talk for we left out what we didn't like. And here's the problem. That incomplete baseline becomes gospel. Politicians quote it, activists shove it in your face, the media parrots it like scripture, and suddenly defensive gun use doesn't exist. Not because it doesn't happen, but because they decided not to count it. Literally, I want you to think about that. They just decided not to count that. So think about that and remember that the next time some anti-gunner tries to throw a stat in your face. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Stossel's right. Guns save lives way more often than the public is ever told. But you'll never see that on CNN, a White House press conference, or in your favorite crime drama because those stories don't serve the narrative. Every year, over 1 million Americans use guns to defend themselves, most without firing a shot. That's not a myth. That is not a slogan. That is reality. And no matter how many smug monologues or cherry-picked FBI reports get waved around, the truth doesn't change. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. That's not propaganda. That's reality. And that's also why I designed the shirt that I'm wearing here today, the I'm the Militia design. It's designed to remind you, to remind me, to remind everyone else that we are the ones responsible for our safety. And as we just talked about in this video, it shows when we actually take on the responsibility of owning a firearm to protect ourselves, we actually are able to protect ourselves. We're not relying on the government. We're not relying on somebody in the White House or somebody in some weird bureaucratic office. We are relying on ourselves to protect ourselves because we know the government can be there when we need them the most. So I'm gonna put a link in the description section of this video for you to check out the I'm the Militia design. We have them in this t-shirt, we have them in hats, we have them in hoodies, we have them in drinkware, and also go ahead and check out this clever little design here. I wonder, can you tell me, what do you think this says? What do you think? Just think. What do you think the symbols on my hat mean? And if you don't know, I'm not gonna tell you. You're gonna have to click the link in the description of this video to find out. So, head over to shop.mrcolionnoir.com and check out the I'm the Militia design and the, you thought I was gonna accidentally slip up and say what this meant, huh? Nah, but yeah, go ahead and check this out. We also have these available too in all of our shirts, hats, hoodies, and drinkware as well. One thing's for certain and two things are for sure. Politicians and tech giants don't want gun content to be recommended to you. And we're all fighting this culture war together. Now you can help do your part by liking, commenting, subscribing to the channel, but most importantly, sharing this video with at least one person. Together we can stop the suppression of our 2A rights. And don't forget to click the link in the description section of this video for the products that I mentioned in this video.